Hey everybody, welcome to the Growing with Fishes podcast, episode 121. This week we have the awesome Joshua Steensland joining us.
How's it going, guys?
Thanks for joining us.
Thanks a lot for having me, man.
Welcome to the show.
This week we have the awesome, sorry about that, I forgot to mute that again this week. We also have Roger. How's it going, Roger, from I Love Marijuana?
It's going great. From I Love Growing Marijuana, we're doing just great. Fantastic. Nice day today. We're going to be in the 60s tomorrow. I can't wait to get some work done outside.
I'm sure most of the country hates you.
Yeah. It was freezing this morning. It was 31 degrees this morning at 7 o'clock. And now tomorrow it's going to be 60, 7 degrees or something like that.
That's crazy.
Yeah, I love it.
We also have Marty.
Hello. How y'all doing?
We got Mr. Green Jeans back.
Peace. Thanks. Glad to be here.
Oh, yeah. After a few weeks off. We got BrayneGro.
Hey, everybody.
Hey, I've been thinking about you the last couple of days because I've been going through all Chris Trump's videos, So
cool. Awesome.
I'm getting ready to jump into that big spider web of making stuff,
Alrighty, so thanks a lot, Joshua, for joining us. And why don't you tell us a little bit about your farm and what you're about? You have a kombucha business. You had a really awesome spot on the news the other day.
Yeah.
And then
that was fun.
And then you also do all kinds of awesome stuff with cannabis. So thanks for joining us, and thanks for sharing your knowledge.
Oh man, thank you so much for having me. Basically, I started as most of us are as a medical cultivator for myself. And I used to own 2 brick and mortar hydro shops or garden centers back in the, 15 years ago. And that was kind of where I really cut my teeth in the industry and learned what was what and tried every different kind of cultivation except for aquaponics. That's the next one I'd really like to dive into. And I've met the right people for that. So I'm excited to trudge forward on that front. But
we definitely recommend it. Let's put it that way.
There you go. So now I cultivate in living soil systems and indoor polyculture type systems where we focus on just mainly feeding the plants, or feeding the soil, not the plants. So I'm sure everybody's familiar with the living soil methodology. We take that and we just kind of strip it down even more to where we don't even feed any kind of nutrients into the root zone, whether they're teas or anything, while plants are in the bed. So we're strictly water only. I've been doing that for over 3 years on my beds at home, and caught some attention of some folks who wanted to attempt it on a commercial scale. So at Freshwater Farms, we're a OLCC licensed facility in Oregon. And we're into our 3rd cycle of our 40 light test room, and things have been going really well. And so we're getting ready to expand into a vertical blooming situation. So we're going to have 2 tiers of blooming beds, and we're pretty excited about that. You're not going to see very many of those around just yet. So we're excited to kind of try it out and see how that goes.
So a lot of people that are listening might not have heard of living soil, or might not be familiar with the concept. You want to give people a little bit of a brief on that?
Yeah, sure. Basically, living soil, like over the past couple of years, no-till has become kind of the buzzword in the industry and in the community. And basically, a no-till is kind of is just a living soil system where you let the bacteria and the fungi drive the vehicle of nutrient delivery. So you're basically stepping away and letting nature do what it's designed to do. And I found that really appealing, in a sense where I could just kind of get my hands and my body out of the way, and that there was this natural process that was already in place where you just had to kind of, like a recipe, put the pieces together and this machine would just take off. And what it provides you in the end is incredible quality medicine for, really cheaply produced. And I don't mean cheap like chintzy, but cheap, like it doesn't cost you much, you know. So you're still using really high quality ingredients, and you know, you're just basically taking care of that microbial biomass in your soil that's interacting with the roots of the plant and doing everything that it needs to give the plant its nutrition.
That's really awesome. A lot of people, especially with aquaponics, aren't familiar with that. So thanks for kind of going over that.
No,
So
yeah, absolutely.
You do a lot of stuff with companion planting. What are some of the companion plants that you're really a fan of?
Sure. Well, right now, really, kind of the sky's the limit. I try anything. I think I've recently been informed that the broccolis or the brassicas, I believe they're called, can have antifungal properties, especially when the leaves start to decay. So I'm considering either doing some testing on that or just taking them out altogether, because I do have broccoli and stuff like that in there. And if they are going to be a detriment, I'd like to get them out of there. That being said, I've had broccoli in my beds at home for 3 years and everything is rocking. So, you know, I don't know. If I planted it all broccoli, it might be a different story, but I think that speaks to where diversity is really important, and especially in polyculture type systems. You know, if you are just monocropping or just using your cash crop and then just one type of companion plant, you're really limiting that exchange that's happening in the soil. You're limiting, you know, each plant has its own different ability and brings its own piece to this bigger puzzle. So I throw anything and everything at my beds, and whatever takes, and whatever just doesn't make it, doesn't make it. So kind of Fukuoka-esque.
Yeah, so the thing with brassicas is they don't have any symbiotic mycorrhizal fungi, and at least any that's been found. And then they also, you know, it's been, you know, theorized that they are, and I don't know if this has been proven chemically or not, but they definitely don't encourage fungal growth. We can definitely say that pretty confidently. So
yeah, after someone informed me of that, I I went in there and I broke the leaf and I smelled it, and it does have this kind of really strong antimicrobial smell. Almost smells like a cleaner when you break into it. So it inherently, like, there's this inside, it kind of made sense when I smelled it. It was just like, man, that smells pretty pungent, you know.
So is there any go-to companion plants you might recommend? I know I'm a big fan of purslane and thyme, you know, those, and clover, those three.
Absolutely. Yeah, I was going to say clover. I like, you know, I like other things like ryegrass, and just because they really can fill up patches. Like if you had like a big leaf of something fall and kind of block the light on the soil, you end up with a patch of bare soil. And some of those things like ryegrass can take over those spots really quick. Clover is another one that just does a great job. Anything basic. I like dynamic accumulators like comfrey. Those tend to not stick around on my indoor polyculture beds. I think for whatever reason, I think the canopy, they just don't get enough sunlight. You know, after the flowering canopy just creates too much diffused light, and they don't have enough energy to kind of pick back up once we harvest, which, you know, it's too bad. But I really like comfrey. I'd like to find a way to keep it going indoors.
That's really awesome. So what other plants are you putting in your garden? You mentioned broccoli and a couple of others. What's some of the other stuff that you got going, at least in the latitude?
Sure, we got beets, daikon radish. There's a pumpkin going in there right now, but I'm having to whack it back because it's getting pretty outrageous. We've got mustard. You know, your basic 12 seed build-a-soil blend is kind of in there too. I started with that, so some of it may have died off. So there's a lot. I probably have 30 different varieties of stuff going in there, and some keep coming back, and others get knocked back, you know, and don't come. I don't see them for a cycle, and then all of a sudden there they come again. So it's this interesting living kind of ecosystem of companion plants. So they some of them wax and wane, they come and go, and it's fun to kind of watch how that works out.
So you mentioned was it your last run or two, you didn't have any supplemental stuff. Are you running that the same in your indoor as well?
What do you mean by supplemental?
As far as any teas or anything like that?
Oh, right. Yeah. So I'll basically re-amend in between cycles. with whatever nutrients or dry minerals. I've been working closely with Tad from Keep It Simple, and he's got a Reamend kit that I've been using. It's really nice, and he recommends every cycle, and I only typically Reamend every other cycle, and it's worked really well for me. I haven't seen a reduction in yields, and I haven't seen like an ill effect or reduced plant vigor. So I'm just going to kind of continue on with this minimalist. I'm really kind of a less is more type of guy. I'll cut recipes in half. I think it's easier to add than subtract in these, especially in soil type situations. And I really just look to my plant's health and let them kind of tell me, what's going on. And so far, so good.
So what are you doing for IPM then with that in mind?
Sure. I mean, typically, what I'm doing at Freshwater Farms, because we're surrounded by other commercial facilities and kind of a complex, and there's hemp fields literally a football field away in the summertime, spring and summer. So I would like to do a no spray IPM and just kind of flood the room with beneficials. But in a situation like freshwater, it wasn't effective. Where there's so many bad guys out there that we had to go with a spray IPM during veg, and we typically use like a method 1 or a kind of essential oil based spray. And then when we hit after about day 10 of flower, we switch to beneficials, purely beneficials. And in my home grow, things have been going so rich and so alive in my soil that I haven't used an IPM in 2 cycles now at all. No sprays, no extra beneficials. And so far, so good. I think that there's been some discussion about how Brix levels can be contributing to resistance to the bad guys. So we're going to maybe look about getting a refractometer and start doing some Brix readings, and just to see if there's maybe a correlation there.
Yeah, that sap testing is super easy to do once you get the refractometer. I've been working with saltwater aquariums for quite a long time, and we use those all the time just to check salinity, and it's real simple and very, very easy.
Nice. Yeah, we're looking forward to getting that data going.
So what are some of the other methods you use as far as to get the nutrients and other things that you're looking for? Like, do you use any teas? How do you go about inoculating in the beginning? That kind of thing.
Yeah, no, I think active microbial rich teas are really important strategy, especially for if you're in your first cycle or your first couple cycles, or if you've experienced a bed dry out or any kind of adverse conditions. A quick way to increase those populations is a compost tea. I've been partial to compost extracts, which the Malibu compost guy would just kind of describe as running water through compost and just kind of letting not charging it with active aeration. I've been hesitant to do that because as much of a minimalist I am, I'm a little bit of a control freak, and I don't have the microscope, and I don't have the skills to kind of get in there and see what I'm actually brewing. So I tend to err on the side of caution and do the extract method and then apply them that way. And then I like earthworm castings or insect castings of any kind. The millipede poo is great. The millipoo stuff is great. And I like to just throw castings at everything. So we consume a lot of castings at Freshwater Farms, and we're actually going to look into building our own big, large-scale worm bins so we can produce the amount of castings that we need, right there at the facility.
The other big one that I've had a lot of luck with and has really great nutrient profile is cockroach castings. So do you feed and hissing cockroaches? You can feed them all the same things that you would feed worms. Anything that you would feed a worm, you feed them. They don't eat meat. The other one that it works pretty well is black soldier fly larvae. They will eat meat. So if you do have something else on your property that you need to get rid of, you can throw it in there for whatever reason. So that does work pretty well. But the cockroaches as well, especially if you're raising chickens and things like that, have a great calcium to protein ratio and real high in fat. So they're great for making all kinds of things grow quickly.
Yeah, get good for the homestead for sure. Yeah, I mean, I remember you talking about that at the conference, and I was fascinated. I think it's a fantastic idea.
Yep. and their waste is real high in phosphorus and magnesium and lots of stuff that the plants want. So.
Yeah, it'd be good to diversify. If you're using using multiple types of insect shit, and there you go.
So what are some of your other, I guess, rules of thumb or tips or tricks for growing in a living soil environment, or moving towards a sustainable farm?
Sure. I mean, I think that's kind of where I'm pushing towards now, is to try to create an indoor cultivation system or style that can be truly called regenerative, where we're actually doing a net positive, which would include getting renewable energy sources to power the grow using LED lights. We're having really good success. We're in our third cycle of testing out LEDs. I'm an old HPS guy, and I'm impressed. I think, I have to work with them for, I'd say, another year before I really have a good, solid opinion. But so far, so good. A year ago, or a year and a half ago, I would have said no way the LED tech has arrived. But I'm being convinced more and more as we go. So I think that when you were able to employ these kind of new technologies, and then also the old ones like biodynamic farming, in a sense. So if we wanted to get like a quarter acre or a half acre and start actually making our own biodynamic compost, our own biodynamic inputs, and then utilizing those inputs on the farm, on the indoor cultivation facility, and hopefully we can get to a point where we feel like we're a net positive, on a carbon footprint, that we still think we're sequestering carbon, even though we're indoors, we're still accessing the atmosphere. So I think that we can change the way people think, especially when it's the investors that only think about money, are going to find out what our pounds produced are, our cost of pounds produced are dramatically lower than other people who are using indoor. So I'm kind of getting off on a tangent, but I think people need to just study up on the soil, study up on how the plant interacts with the soil. And once you wrap your head around that really helps you to understand how much really you can shave off of your indoor cultivation systems. You can reduce the water by 80%. I mean, there's a lot of things. You could trim the fat a lot of places.
So what would be some resources for people you would recommend to people to kind of educate themselves in that direction?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think for the readers, a really great book that kind of encapsulates the ethos is the One Straw Revolution by Fukuoka. It's a really great. It's a short story, a light read, and it just describes this guy's journey from working in Japan for their Department of Agriculture into becoming just this complete minimalist, hands-off type cultivator, and his fields are crushing it when everyone around him was using conventional practices, and they were finally like, whoa, what is this guy doing? He's just the story is just great. So a One Straw Revolution, and then of course the Lowenfels books, the teaming series, nutrients, fungi, and
Yep.
bacteria. Those are
Yeah,
absolutely a must. Yeah, microbes, absolutely a must. And then for the internet guys, Build a Soil has a great reference section for people who are just getting into it. And I really support Jeremy and what he's been doing. Ever since I started doing this, he was one of my first resources, and always an open book. And I think everything that they put out on their that they sell is the highest quality, and the information there, which is free, is great. So it's a good place to start.
Awesome. So what varieties have you been growing?
Well, we've been kind of stuck with because we bought a license that was it was already in play, so we didn't have a 90-day window. So we've been really in a pickle with having to just get whatever has been available. And to be honest with you, I'm not the pickiest guy when it comes to genetics. I just want stability. And and in the commercial realm, you have to be kind of conscious of what the new hype strains are, which drives me crazy. But it's a different market now, so we have to kind of be aware of that. So we're getting ready to introduce a bunch of new stuff that we can in turn do some pheno hunting and pick some winners, and then hopefully build some proprietary genetics for our facility. But we're really it's really probably a year and a half out before we're really getting that involved.
Alrighty. So you've been growing in the same beds, I believe, was it 9 cycles last time I checked your?
Yeah, at my home grow, we're in our 9th cycle. We're over 3 years in the same beds.
Right, so can you talk a little bit about that? A lot of soil people, that's kind of a foreign concept.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think that goes back to just really understanding what a living soil is, and that this whole concept of throwing out your soil when you were done with it just is really an illustration of our lack of understanding of what's really driving the vehicle there. And so when sorry, I got distracted. What's up, Josh?
What's up, man? Nice hat, dude.
Yeah. Thought I'd rep, even though it's reverse.
Hell yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, man. So anyway, with the beds at home, it's just one of those things where once you realize that soil is an ongoing resource, and the you can keep it alive indefinitely. And so as long as you have the appropriate nutrient and mineral content in there, as long as that micro biomass has been thriving, it'll last indefinitely, and it'll get better. The less it's disturbed, the longer it goes with the least disturbance. Those mycelial or fungal networks, which are like the telecommunication lines of the system, the stronger and more permanent they become, the quicker the plants can access the nutrients, the more efficient the system runs. And so you just kind of see that over time. As long as you keep stable moisture and you keep everything stable, it's like wine. It ripens with age, and then you build a humus layer. And so the longer you keep cycling nutrients through your cover crops and your companion plants, just the richer and more better the soil will become.
Interesting.
Oh, yeah. And those deep roots too will help pull nutrients from deeper underground towards those plants. It's one of the things I like about no-till, at least for soil growing. It's really, really awesome. It's definitely the way, if I was doing soil, that's how I would go for sure.
Right on. Yeah, it's one of those things where it was just like a aha moment for me. I'd been growing for 16, 17 years in the conventional fashion with the latest, whatever hype nutrients, and then organic bottled nutrients, which really aren't much better, and so it was one of those things where it was just like, man, duh. Like, people always question, one of the first questions folks have, especially in polyculture situations where you have like beets and all these other things going on, they're like, aren't you worried that they're robbing nutrients or water or whatever from the plants? And there's, in a properly built living soil system, you have enough nutrient for a very long time. And especially when you have these plants that are, like you said, they're nutrient cycling. So the comfrey is if you're outside with comfrey, and these dynamic accumulators send roots really far down, and so they're accessing nutrients that are way deeper than most of the other plants are, and it deposits them into their leaves, and then the leaves die, get consumed by the worms, and there's the nutrient cycling process. So with things like clover and whatnot, you can end up with more nitrogen than you had when you started at the end of the season, just from the clover pulling nitrogen out of the air and the nutrient cycling of your dynamic accumulators. The soil just continually builds itself.
Absolutely. So you mentioned earlier about the differences between commercial and home growing. Do you want to talk a little bit about that and maybe some of the big differences? I know I could definitely talk about a lot about that, especially after coming back from Oklahoma and hearing some pretty interesting ideas on how to run a commercial grow, to say the least. But yeah, so why don't you talk a little bit about that and some of the differences between the way you approach a commercial versus a home grow?
Sure. So the fundamental way that I handle my home grow, which is a very hands-off, like if somebody didn't really know me or understand what I was going for, they would think I didn't care. But it's really that I care so much that I don't want to muck things up with my presence. Like, I know that I've created I've done everything I could do for the plants by building a soil and maintaining it and creating an environment to facilitate this kind of natural process to occur. And then once I'm there, I really just see myself as an observer. And then if I have to do anything, I do very gentle manipulations. And it's not because I love the plants or so much that I don't want to harm them. It's just that I really just don't think I need to be in the way. Like I've in the past 3 years has proven to me I literally walk into my grow for maybe 3 to 5 minutes a day. Maybe. And sometimes I don't go in it for 3 or 4 days because everything's so automated. I don't need to be in there fussing. And so we wanted to take this same kind of minimalist, hands-off approach and see if we could do it on a commercial scale. And we're finding in this 40 light test room that it's really very similar. And I don't need to spend, like I was telling the guys that I'm working with, like if you see me here working my butt off, running around for 8 hours a day, something's wrong. Like something's wrong. Like I should be tootling around, looking at the plants, maybe doing a soil sample test. And that's about it, checking soil moisture, because once plants are in the ground, the work is being done by the soil. It's really hard to take credit for it because I'm literally not doing anything once I plant. I mean, a foliar spray 3 times a week. Yeah. But that's nothing. That's nothing compared to what the plant and the soil are doing. So scaling up, at least to this level, hasn't proved to be a big logistical challenge. So that's one thing that we were really excited about. We were able to maintain a level of quality. Now I need to dial in these LEDs. I need to kind of really just work with them a little more before I have a good solid opinion. We may switch back to HPS after another few cycles. We're not really sure. So, but right now the workflow is scaling up nicely. So I'm not finding myself, overwhelmed or anything. It's really just kind of a very similar concept. I just kind of go in and observe, and if anything is out of whack, I call the bug guys. We get to bring the bugs in, So it's not. It's simple. The other things when scaling up to the commercial level are things like building a good solid team, because now I'm just the cultivator of this facility. Now we need a good sales team. We need a good marketing team. We've been getting hammered on Instagram. So we've just decided, like, it's really kind of taken the wind out of our sails when it comes to social media. Our first account was really picking up a lot of steam. We got deactivated and we're having trouble getting them back. So we're thinking about handing social media off to a team that specifically does that, because we're obviously doing something wrong to be getting deleted so fast. So it's other things like that now you've got this actually big business that it's not just black market growing and slinging herb. You've got a lot of other considerations to make. And so those are the things that we've found challenging scaling up, is just kind of adapting to this new environment.
Yeah, everyone's got their haters on social media. We had the same problem. Right. We couldn't stream for 3 months because of a similar issue. So
I was going to ask, and this is kind of a loaded question, and don't take it weird, but like because you guys do the double stacked levels, right?
Yep.
I know it's been probably a learning curve, but do you want to speak about the learning curve of controlling environment with the double layers, or how's that been for you?
Sure. We actually, that room is about 75% built. So we haven't done any of the wet work in there yet, or it's not functional yet. Right. So we're in the process of building that out. We had structural engineers kind of coming in and checking how things are going along the way, because I didn't want to die in there. So we had a lot of weight up on that second level, and they built a little mezzanine so we can walk up there. So we're anticipating some issues. We do have a really great HVAC guy on the team who actually runs some really big accounts in Hawaii, like large buildings. So we've got some DIY airflow stuff that we're going to be doing to make sure that we can maximize the airflow, because we are very aware that dual level humidity and heat rise. So we want to find a way to neutralize that as much as possible. And we're going to be working with the HVAC team to make sure that we're not going to have a moldy second level.
That's a good thought. Yep.
Yeah, cool.
I had a question for you, just because you were talking about how much little time they're spending with them. How much defoliating do you do?
I don't do much defoliating at all. I will kind of do like the traditional lollipop under the canopy just for airflow purposes. But I haven't subscribed wholly to that complete like crazy one node leaf strip thing. I'm not hating on it, because some people they get really nice results. I think
have you seen the ppm levels they're running though? The total ppm levels they're running in the systems? They're running like 3,000 total ppms when they do schwazing, which is like insane. So like, if your strains aren't used, at least every grow that I've seen or seen any documentation for, they're running.
Is that just through that period like that?
Yeah. So the only people that I've seen online, and you correct me if I'm wrong, that have anything documented that they posted online is 3-Alite. And they're running like 2,800, 2,600, 3,000 total ppms when they strip. And that's insane. Like if your strain isn't used to that, they're fried. Like most strains, like at least 50 to 70% of the strains you try are going to just fry at that point. Like that's way too strong.
I can't imagine running nutrients that strong. That's insane.
Yeah, so that's my thing with it, is that they're doing a bunch of really whack stuff when they do that. And like, of course, the plant might temporarily uptake that if it's been totally stripped down. But to me, it just seems like, and I get they get good results, but you'd have to really work a strain to get it adapted to that. You know what I mean? Is my point.
No, I completely agree. And I think that in living soil systems, which has been my thing all along, is that the leaf provides an essential function, not to just go on and on, but the leaf produces, as a byproduct of the photosynthesis, it produces the carbohydrates and sugars that become the root exudates. And those begin in the leaf. So in my mind, in a living soil system, if you're removing 95% of those, then you're potentially reducing the exudate process, which allows the plant to communicate. So in my mind, in a living soil system, it seems like you're just kind of robbing some functionality from the plant that's there inherently. And it really goes completely against my minimalist hands-off approach. Like, the plant was designed for a specific reason, a specific way. If it was meant to drop 95% of its leaves, there would have been a biological function that does it,
Some strains will drop a considerable amount of them late in flower too, like not early in flower, obviously, when a lot of people like to defoliate and all of that. And I do totally agree and say, like, if you want to defoliate, your 6 plants in your garage, that's a lot different than defoliating a large, commercial greenhouse with a lot of plants. That takes a lot of time to defoliate all that shit. Like, it's not an easy decision to just be like, oh yeah, I'll go do something that I'm not really sure really does anything, and take a whole lot of time to do it and pay a whole lot of people to do it. I've never been convinced that it makes any kind of sense on the commercial level, and I'm like barely convinced that it might make a difference even at all. And definitely not enough to justify doing it on any sort of scale, I think.
I think more times than not, it's an optical illusion. I mean, you're stripping everything away, and then whatever comes back looks crazy huge because there's nothing there. Like, so in my mind, it looks like an illusion, like they're just playing a trick on themselves. I'd love to see somebody do a side by side with, strains and weights and whatnot. I'd really like to see that.
I haven't ever posted this, but I was taught to grow by an old schooler who is kind of half insane. Quite literally, he spent a decade in prison, and it fucked him up big time. But he wrote me out. I remember this day like it was yesterday. As I was talking to him, we were having this real deep conversation, teaching me about growing. He was typing the whole time, and he wrote me this like essay, almost 2 or 3 pages, on how to defoliate plants. And it was all about a system of making choices all the way through. And so you just kind of sparked that when you're saying that, Joshua. Like, it's true, like that does it does make the buds look bigger, but there's a point where like some leaves are actually shading other things, and if you get into the details of it, pulling some of these big fan leaves that are creating shade and restricting airflow is actually really productive, and it doesn't have to be like we take them all on week 3 or 2 or whatever, you know what I mean?
Right. I agree with you wholeheartedly. I don't want to give the false impression that I definitely do that. Like if I see dense pockets in my canopy, I'm definitely thinning, for airflow and for where sun can hit. I just think that there's a line that one can cross, and I'm just not willing to go that route. And yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm just having a conversation, man. So
for sure.
And that's pretty much how I like to do it too. I'm not big on defoliation either. I just do the very bottom. Steve's trying to remember what he wanted to say, so I'll let that go. Let Steve say something important here.
I was gonna say, so if you guys have seen that lab, I have a YouTube. There's like 6 or 7 videos before I went to Jamaica of that little grow lab I was running. I was spending a good 30 to 60 minutes a day down there defoliating and topping, like topping the ends of the branches. Super cropping, and then just taking a few leaves while I did each plant, and just kind of working a rotation. I do like one bed at night, and just work my way, on a rotating schedule. Each evening, I work on a different section, or I take clones or whatever. But it was just nice to go in, put a podcast on or whatever, put some music on, put an album on, and just jam out and just work on the plants. And one of the biggest things, one of the things that I personally love a lot about defoliating is I'm a big fan of taking like 5 to 10% off a week, especially just taking it off the main branches. But like he was saying earlier about those big fan leaves, if it's shading nodes, I want that to be gone. Like I really want light on those nodes, because if you get a lot of light on those nodes, they're gonna throw a branch, which is gonna be a node. And that's something, if I can just take off just the big ones off the main stalk. One second, I'm gonna.
No.
Oh, sorry, Josh.
Yeah, Josh, you're making big noise in the background over there, buddy.
There's a lot of noise, so I muted you for a second and you started talking. I'm sorry. Let me unmute you. There we go. Should be unmuted.
No.
Can you hear me?
No.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm rolling my joint, but I was just going to comment. It's like the Goldilocks theory. It's kind of all the stuff that we're talking about, that Elaine talks about, not too hot, not too cold. But like, it's so easy on Instagram, or the way we've kind of been communicating on social media to be like, it's this or it's that.
People too like ultimatum me. They're like, it has to be done this way, and it's like, no, there's 6 ways, and depending on your humidity, the strain, the nutrient feed, the atmosphere, the altitude, there's lots of factors that can give radically different expressions in those plants. The terroir or the Appalachia, whatever you want to call it, depending on where you're at on that whole debate right now. So that's kind of plays a huge factor in that. Lost my train of thought there on what I was ranting on in the beginning of it. I'll be honest with you. But especially we're trying to get flavors and stuff, any little change, and that's one of the reasons why CW Pharma lost their patent, here with Epidolex, was because they were like, oh, well, 200 milligrams per dose treats epilepsy. Well, no shit. We've known that since like the 70s that the CBD has been, potentially a treatment for epilepsy. There's government and pharmaceutical and public research papers on that topic going back to the 70s. CBD was first isolated in the 40s. So like to go and say that you have any kind of claim on that is just absurd. But if you could, you'd have to do we'll have when Beth comes on from the Open Cannabis Project, she'll come on and talk about this. You can't even do like a patent strain to say it produces this expression, because you have to do like a full, hey, this is every single variable on how it was grown, to get that expression, or it simply won't express. Even the presence of a pathogen can dramatically change the terpene and cannabinoid expression. So that's why a lot of these things that really kind of are, not really something that they can bottle, or makes it very hard to come to a patent or some of the other stuff when you look at it compared to other, other agricultural crops or other medicines or other things like that. It makes it really hard to try to figure out guidelines, that are fair and make sense for the industry, which is part of the reason why it's such a clusterfuck right now.
Yeah, it's a pretty crazy time right now for sure.
Yeah,
I was
but
going to ask.
go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to kind of switch directions if that's all right, and just ask, Joshua, what's new for you, man? Like, what are you learning about right now that's really exciting in your world? Just that's kind of a random question.
No, for sure. I mean, I think right now I'm really interested in biodynamics and diving, maybe not necessarily into the moon cycle planting aspect of it, but diving into the actual preparations itself, the biodynamic preps. I'm really fascinated by the kind of the homeopathic doses that you basically are using, and I'm wanting to incorporate that into the commercial realm. That's kind of my latest craze.
Is there anything that have you had a chance to try hybridize any KNF stuff with what you got going on?
No, but I'm glad you reminded me of that. We're actually getting involved in a 13-acre hemp project here locally. I'm partnering with actually one of my kombucha retailer. One of my retail location kombucha guys has a bunch of property, and he was like, "Man, help me out." So we're gonna jump into a 13-acre hemp deal, and I really thinking strongly about incorporating KNF to manage that acreage. Just the stuff that Chris Trump has proven is undeniable, and I think that it would be a really great way to maintain acreage and kind of cut my teeth on it, because if we do well on this 13 acres, he's going to buy another. He's almost ready to pull the trigger on buying another 40. Like, he wants to just kind of gobble up some acreage and really go hard on the living soil hemp. And so that's something that I'm definitely going to be dabbling in. Might even be seeing if we can get old Mr. Trump out for a consultation. So
Is that
he needs some Gatorade.
yeah.
Plant love. What they crave.
Great. Rondo.
I was going to say,
Rondo.
is that hemp for CBD, like smokable flower, or what's the intention behind? Yeah,
We're gonna shoot for smokable flower. We've got a really good line on some seed that comes from Bend, so we know that it's going to work well in our region, and we're working with. I wish I could say, but I don't know if I could say yet. But we're working with somebody who's pretty well known, who's going to like really help us, so we don't have to reinvent the wheel. So we're bringing on a team of people who are highly experienced. They run a 400-acre farm locally to us, so we have access to them as we go along and get questions, so we can actually build this project appropriately and not mess up as much as if we were just doing it on our own. So we're bringing somebody on, and so we're going to be able to pull 2 crops off this year with an early auto flower and then a regular crop afterwards, and we're pretty excited about it.
I appreciate that about you, man. Like every time you're just kind of talking about all these different things, you're like, yeah, we're building a team. Yep, we're building experts. Like, it's smart, dude. It shows your intelligence, So.
Well, you got to know. I mean, I know that I've never farmed acreage, and I can't. If somebody's putting their trust in me to guide them through this process, you certainly have to be able to say what you can and can't do and be comfortable with that, or else you're going to get yourself in a really funky situation. And I don't like funky situations. And my name is worth more to me than any amount of money I could make. So, it's very important to me that I say what I can I can deliver what I say I can, and when I can't deliver it, I bring somebody on who can, and that just is better for everybody, and then I end up getting an education in the process. So I'm really looking forward to tackling this little 13-acre project. I think I'm going to learn a lot.
Very cool. Now, have you done anything with any of your kombucha or your what do they call those, the scobies. Have you tried using any of the lactic acid bacteria from the kombucha for your plants, because they produce lactic acid and lactic acid compounds similar to labs, like right. we talk about milk-based labs, and you can absolutely get not exactly the same, but similar type compounds, or even use them with things like horsetail fern or comfrey or other things to break those down and make them more available quickly. Have you worked with anything like that, especially because you're own a kombucha farm?
Right. No, and I haven't, and kind of for the same reasons that I don't do active compost teas, is that I just don't. I know how to make the kombucha, but I'm not analyzing it. So, not knowing what's going on. I think at one point I tried to help a buddy out with a dilute kombucha spray for PM that he was having, and it just ended up like warping his plants on his leaves, and I was just like, oh man, I don't think I'm going to do that again. And but I have looked into when like the KNF process. I guess there's some vinegar involved. We definitely utilize we have lots of kombucha that we can kind of run to vinegar for those purposes. But no, I think I haven't gone down that road yet by incorporating the two of them. I did try to make cannabis tea and use that as the tea for the kombucha, and it failed miserably.
There's a lot
Do
of
you think there's any merit to following the kombucha all the way to vinegar in terms of what we do in KNF inputs, making a higher quality vinegar than what's commercially available?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what how a kombucha vinegar would stack up against a commercially bought vinegar, but I think that it's certainly going to be more vibrant, I would think, more alive.
Very cool. So what other tips or tricks? Do you do anything different with grafting or pruning or any of the other parts of your schedule that might be a little bit different especially for keeping them lower into that double stack?
Sure. No, I mean, I think one of the things that we're having to take into consideration for the double stack is that we definitely have a lower clearance. I think our lights are 4.5 feet from the 5 feet from the soil, right? So we're going to have a really limited window. So we're going to plant more densely in the canopy. That way we can flip them when they're like a foot tall. We can just turn and burn. So we're looking forward to kind of seeing how that works. I don't know if anybody has seen lately it's being called, everything's tech now, but this mosquito net tech. I don't know if anybody's seen that or heard of it.
Yeah, I was going to bring that up earlier when he was talking about, that's why I got the side trail, but when he was talking about trimming the leaves, yes. And who's that guy? What's his
Crondon Grows, I believe.
Okay, I was looking at someone else. It was it's like Outdoor Grow, or I'm messing it up, but
yeah, no, I know Crondon Grows has been documenting it the last couple cycles, and basically what people are doing, what this guy's doing, is blowing my mind. Is he's taking basically like screen that you would get for a sliding glass door or a window screen. You can get it at Home Depot, like 4 feet by 4 feet wide by 25 feet rolls of it. And they're getting that screen and they're laying it over the plants that are trellised, starting at like day 1 of flower. And they leave it there for like 2 weeks. And so what happens is the plants grow up and hit that screen and then start to move laterally. And then all the stuff underneath comes up. And when they remove that mosquito net off after 2 weeks of flower, the canopy is even and dense. He has like 30 colas per square foot. It's ridiculous what happens. So, I mean, when I first saw it, I was like, what the heck is this nonsense? And then I saw the end results. It was like, wow. So I'm interested in kind of doing some testing, especially in our vertical room where height is definitely limited, to see if we can really maximize that sweet spot in the canopy, and see if there is a chance of increasing yields by just causing more colas to come up and more lateral growth and just really fill in that canopy. It's pretty interesting.
That's what I loved about super cropping, because that causes you break those tops that are too tall down, and then all the underneath colas come jumping up there. And I even, I'm not sure if it's actually stimulating or just the fact that you broke it out of the way, and all those colas, like you were talking about moving a leaf for the nodes. Removing the leaf not only lets light, I think that one big giant leaf isn't taking all that energy. All them little nodes get all that energy. It expresses back through them, I think.
And I guess I feel a little similar about super cropping than I did, about what we were talking about before, defoliating, which is that, on a small scale, super cropping is not that big of a deal. But again, when you have 600 plants, all of them with 30 branches each, and you going around to super crop each one of them, starts getting expensive, and you have to start asking yourself, what kind of return am I getting for the time and money that I'm spending on that? So I have done super cropping myself and everything else. What I do like about the screen tech is that it's pretty easy to apply and pretty easy to take away. So it's not difficult to wouldn't be as difficult to do on a large scale. So I think that that would be, I think it would probably be key to get the screen on them and get them spreading out when they're relatively young, so that you know, you get more of that development and root growth as it's taking off as a younger plant, and that it spreads out sooner. In my experience with doing, you know, because I went from growing outside to having to learn to grow inside when regulations shut me down. So, you know, like, and I can only grow in my garage, so only being able to grow, you know, with about, you know, 3 to 4 feet of clearance underneath LEDs is, you know, like basically what I've been doing for the last couple of years, ever since I've been shut down. So that would be my recommendation, is that if you get started on the plant sooner, then you'll be able to keep it lower and fuller. Yeah. If you let it get too tall before you start, even topping it will never accomplish the same thing as low stress training from a very young age. And I feel like that's what the screen tech would be easy to do, is you could essentially just pull it over the top of all the young plants, let them grow up into it, and then pull it right off the top and have that, and then have a regular canopy growth after that once they've all been evened out. So sounds like it would be pretty appealing for a test for sure.
I like that idea of the screen for that same reason, because you talk about labor intensity. But the labor intensity, I guess my screen, I'll yield in just a second. But the labor intensity is a lot different. But as Steve says, you do a little bit at a time. Or in my case, I don't break everything on the plant. When I guess it might not even be super cropping. When I do it, I only break the largest. You know, I only break over the largest limbs that are really protruding. I don't try and break every single limb, you know, to produce all these extra buds everywhere. Because again, not topping, to me, you get more of a yield. I mean, that's just my opinion. I don't think I've ever yielded off of something topped what I yielded off of stuff that's not topped. And so I'm not as much into, like, I'm not a big fan of topping, but there's a time and a place. And as Steve discussed earlier, there's 6 ways to do it. You got to find out what's best for you and what's labor intensive for you. I now yield to Mr. Josh from Dutch Blooms.
Well, I was just going to say, I was going to just say what you said at the end, that, you know, that really, as commercial is happening and becoming more viable, we're not all indoor growers, and it's not all, you know, even like Joshua's indoor growing, but he's stacking levels, and that's a new thing. There's just all this new stuff that we're doing, and then there's different ways to think about it, and lots of ways to like, I don't know. I'm a commercial grower myself, and I'm just one guy, and I do not want to give into the game that, like, you have to sacrifice quality. You know, it's kind of my thing. Like, I will do whatever it takes. I kind of I have that indoor, you know, working hard, long hours underneath the lights mentality. And so I've done a lot of the defoliating, you guys, straight up, and I've burned a lot of hours and a lot of energy. And I like this new tech, but the one thing I was just going to comment, and I know this wasn't your intention, you know, but similarly, when we started out doing BHO and people were PHC or PVC tube blasting, you know, screens probably aren't the best thing. There's shade cloth that's made commercially available that's not going to leach into your plants. Like, I don't know what screens are, but I've been a kid and I put my tongue on that shit and my nose on that shit, and it smells of burnt rubber. And so I wouldn't put that on my buds personally.
Are you talking about a poly screen or a metal screen?
I guess that's a discussion to be had, but, you know, I was envisioning the poly black shit, you know, that people use.
Yeah. And I think that's actually what they're using, and that was a discussion we were having about what we could use, you know, in lieu of that, or if, you know, like, I was worried about the residue on those things. Like, you would have to wash the whole roll before stringing it out, you know? So I think I'm really glad you brought that up, because there's definitely considerations to be made when moving to apply this and actually do it. And I think that what that screen is made of is a huge consideration. I like your idea of a shade cloth type situation. You just have to, my main consideration, even with the screen, is that you would kind of have to really extra defoliate, because I would be concerned about 2 weeks of micro pockets of humidity in that canopy, you know. So that's been my only, like, you know, the only thing that's making me like not so sure about that is, you know, how do you mitigate that rise in humidity there when everything is getting smashed together for 2 weeks, you know?
I think you had fans and it's a screen, so you would have put air movement through it.
Right, you'd have to compensate. Yeah.
Yeah, compensate.
Well, I was gonna say I haven't seen the indoor guys doing it like what you're describing about what I've saw, and I can't remember this guy's name. I'll have to look it up. He's a pretty big commercial grower in Southern California, I believe, like really big, like acres type deal. And he's been doing this tech for a while, and he uses the shade cloth. And if I remember right, I even asked him about it. He was doing it for the week or two before he flipped it to flower. So you're getting those sites are coming up, and then he's flipping the switch. So maybe there's a combination in there to play around with, you know.
Yeah, it seems like you've got there's some leeway there. You know, it makes sense to do it right before flower. That's been my only hang up, is that, you know, usually when we initiate flower means our canopy's on point. So that means we've already got a dense canopy, and then just throwing something over the top of it, you know. But it does make sense. You just defoliate a little bit extra and then point the fans a little more directly on the screen, or maybe even get some fans underneath.
Yeah, I'd say
somehow.
underneath the bottom of the stems and let it
Yeah,
blow.
or at least something pushing air underneath, you know, from one end of the bed to the other, or however you're doing it.
It does, I think, highlight an important point that you were talking about earlier, which is that you have test beds. You know, you're not going out and changing the entire tech of your grow room, you know, and and risking everything, which I've seen plenty of people do. So I think that if you are going to, and I think you have to experiment with new methods and try to get better and increase quality or yield or whatever. So you really need a test room. You know, you need a test bed, a test room, whether you're outdoors or indoors, you know, like set aside, you know, some space to do, you know, a test run and learn how to do it, and then phase it into your grow, as opposed to, you know, trying to shift all your gears at the same time.
I'd like to add one more thing too, but real quick about when we brought it, because it's been bugging me. I just want to get it out there. The shade cloth deal, for those of you listening out there, I use shade cloth because I have an outdoor greenhouse. So I would tell you, before you go looking and trying to figure out and going, oh my God, there's like 7 different sizes, get to 50 to 60% is probably what would work great for you. I think too small, if you get 30% or lower, the holes might be a little bigger and you might start having little tops come through there, and then you're going to have to be farting around with it. So get your 50 to 60% shade cloth, which will have much smaller spacing in the weave. Okay.
Well, they make new style now. Sorry, I'm just going to tap onto that. And you may be aware of this, Roger, but the silver stuff that's like 2 or 3 layers.
Yeah, they make a green, a gator type thing too.
Yeah.
I was going to say, they make really fine fishing nets for saltwater fishing that are very, very tightly for really tiny fish, or for plankton and stuff, and that would allow a lot of light and be a totally benign, as far as that goes, it'd be, same thing as the filament and fishing line. So as far as something that I think might be a good potential source, something to look into, application-wise and material-wise, probably be a great thing to, plus you can get them on huge sheets.
Probably cheap. Yeah, as I was going to say too. Yeah.
I was going to say that commercial, just to throw in there in the conversation, commercial greenhouse tech, and I actually, now that we're talking about it, I bet this started in a greenhouse, this tech. Commercial greenhouse tech is based upon convection, right? We were talking about air flowing. It's convection. Yep. So there's air moving up through that canopy all the time, and the way these things are designed. So if you went to take that tech indoors, we're going to run into problems in the stuff that we're talking about, or having concerns about. So I just wanted to throw that out there.
Some convection too. You got the tube that runs across the top, so it's blowing out holes in the side of that big plastic tube, and it's blowing out circularly from the top and circulating like, I'm too big for my camera. Where the hell is it? Circulating like this around, because it blows against the top of the greenhouse and it has to move like that. So, but there's a lot that are delivering the air from the below too, you know, which is real nice if you can do that. But the old school is you got a convection tube. It's like on a 36-inch fan with radiators coming from a boiler.
Yeah, but that's old school
it.
tech.
Huh?
I'm talking like a real greenhouse now, you know, with the
Oh, a real
floors.
greenhouse. I'm sorry, the old in the old days we
Yeah.
didn't have a real greenhouse.
No, man, that's what I got. I'm with you. I'm not dogging your shit.
Help me out, Joshua. He's picking on us old greenhouse guys that use HPS and stuff.
We got a question from chat. It says, it'd be awesome to hear how Josh builds his living soil beds from the ground up. What would he do differently than what he's done, at least at his current setup at home? And what foliar products, if any, do you use?
Okay, so building the beds. I will admit that I let someone else do it. I went through Tad at Keep It Simple, and I got his water only mix with biochar, and I have no shame admitting that. I mean, the man puts together a really nice soil mix, and I have no problem supporting somebody like that. And once again, when I first put my beds in, I was just kind of new to this whole process, so the idea of building my own soil at that time was really kind of daunting, and I really wanted to, like I was mentioning earlier, when you know your strengths, know your weaknesses. I didn't want to invest time and energy on something as an experiment. I needed these beds to produce for me, so I went with Tad, and I don't regret it in the least, and I recommend it to anybody who's considering it. Now, that being said, you can build your own soil. It's really effective. I've seen lots of people go through this process, and if you just look up Coots Blend or Coots Soil Blend, or hit up Build a Soil once again on their website, they've got really good resource how you can build your own, and the whole step and process. So, I don't have very many regrets because I went through somebody that was highly reputable, and I really and working through it for over 3 years, I have no regrets whatsoever. So, there's ways you can build your soil, and you'll be really happy if you take the time to kind of learn what you're doing. If you're impatient like I was, there's a lot of companies putting out really, Build a Soil puts out a really great water only blend as well. And I'm sure I've seen some stuff on the East Coast popping up that looks pretty good, but I don't have any experience with it. Foliar sprays. Foliar stuff I tend to do just really like aloe and kelp. When I'm not doing any of my IPM, and I just leave it at that for the most part. Occasionally, if I have made a compost extract or something, I'll add that at some point and maybe just apply that on the leaves to get a nice microbial film on the leaves to keep that going. But I'm so minimalist, it's ridiculous. It's almost embarrassing sometimes because I just don't do much at all. I keep it really simple. Like ridiculously simple.
Awesome.
Do you have an automated water system?
Oh yeah, good question. I use the Blue Mat watering drippers, and they are life-changing devices, man. So if people aren't familiar with them, they require no power. They use a little ceramic probe, and it controls a valve based on its dryness. So you soak these ceramic probes in water before putting them into your beds, and then you get your beds to the moisture level you want them at. You put this probe in there, and when the bed starts to dry out, it opens a valve and it allows water to flow in. And you can use gravity fed. My one at home is gravity fed. When you have a bigger system, like a commercial system, you can use a pump, or you can just use direct pressure from like a water source that you have. If you got good well water and you have good pressure, you can just put a pressure reducer on it and run it now. And that's how we're doing it at Freshwater. So that system, I haven't watered my beds in over 3 years. Once I set that in, it manages the moisture continually. I've had a couple hiccups in 3 years where we had air in the line and had a runoff of water, or it got clogged and I had a bed dry out one time. But in 3 years, 2 incidents, I'll take it.
So they make an electrical as well as a passive probe? Because you said how are you running a pump off of this probe?
Oh, no. So the pump that they have is just kind of a continual pressure pump. It's a inline pump that you would put to a reservoir. And so there's just going to be constant like 9 pounds of pressure or something in the line. And then when the probe dries up, the dripper opens and water drips into the bed, and then it rehydrates the probe and it shuts it off, all not, with no electricity. The probe itself works without electricity, and if you're running off gravity, you could set these things up outdoors or
I got you.
anywhere.
I got you. You're doing your gravity feed is one direction. You're using a charged line the other way
For the commercial one. Yes.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because the gravity, you'd have to be. Sorry, Josh. You'd have to have you'd have to have the water tank up pretty high to feed 200 plants, or
100 yards.
I was just gonna say, dude, thank you so much. Like I had seen the blue mats before, but until you had done your videos on them, like I hadn't tried them, and like they're a lifesaver. So thank you so much for the videos again. And yeah, dude, super appreciate it. I was gonna ask you. So after I got on the phone, I can't remember the dude's name, but the main dude that reps the blue mats out of here, he convinced me to use the soaker hose. And I know you don't do that at home, or you didn't do that at home in the time you made the videos. Are you doing the soaker hose on your commercial, or what do you do?
We are, and I didn't use the soaker hose at home because they didn't have it yet. So they had put it out after I'd put together my system at home. And you know what? After using them at freshwater, I've really because I buried them like 3 inches into the soil, right? I really buried them. But what I'm finding is that my soil is not wicking enough to keep that top layer moist. So the top 2 inches above where the soaker hose, the plants are accessing the water. The plant roots are actually latching onto that hose and getting water directly from the source. So I think it's good, but what I'm thinking is that a combination of the two will be necessary in a living soil type situation, unless you don't want to leave them directly on top of the soil, right? I think there's a big benefit to burying them, and I think that if you just added a second line right above it, running parallel, so you've got, God damn, I can't see my hands. So anyway, so you've got like the soaker hose running at 5 inches, and then right above it, a dripper running right on the surface. And then that way your two zones are getting even moisture.
Yeah, you don't want the dust off to blow away either, right? I mean, that gets so dry, you'd be losing topsoil, wouldn't you?
And that's where a lot of your microbial action is happening in that top layer. It's really important that stays even. That's why companion plants and cover crop is really important to maintain that moisture level so those microbes can do their thing.
Cool. And if you're top dressing, like I ran into the same thing because I heavily top dress. So I put mine on top, but it wasn't long till they were buried because the microbes created soil within months, literally. And so what I found, but I've been in the practice of applying Layton's Kingdom Aquaponics compost tea once a week. And it was just a once a week, 100 gallons over my whole 1,800 square feet of greenhouse. It takes me an hour or two. And that worked out to compensate for that. But if this last run I didn't do that. And I found that I had to get in there and run the hand water, because I decided I wasn't going to do just water only and do a run like that. And but I found the exact same thing. So I'm glad you had the same observation and spoke up about it.
And you were talking about, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I was just going to reaffirm that I think they're really great, and I think that using them both would be highly advantageous. Yeah.
Cool. So you had mentioned before that you are interested in aquaponics. Do you have any questions for us?
Oh man,
yes, I have questions for us.
I wish I did. I wish I had the time. I actually am like running 15 minutes late, and I've got to go. But I would love to come back on because I actually did a bunch of research 3 or 4 years ago because we were thinking about moving to Belize as a family and starting like aquaponic lettuce there. We found some really nice property and we were talking to some people that were working in the resort scene, and they were like, man, you could just kill it if you were able to, do some nice, highly organic veggies here in Belize. And so we were were seriously looking at tackling that. So I would love to come back on and just talk aquaponics.
Heck yeah, you're welcome.
You're welcome.
Why don't you
Appreciate
tell everybody how to find you and how to get connected or get your products if they want to?
Sure. I mean, right now, you can just find me on Instagram, just my name, Joshua Steensland, or on YouTube. I've got a bunch of videos documenting kind of my journey into this no-till from cycle 1 to now. They're not very high quality. I never even rewatch them. I just don't edit them. I just shoot them and put them on there. So it's pretty raw, but it is what it is, right? So that's where you can find me there. That my channel is just Joshua Steensland. And then Freshwater Farms, as we progress, we will be doing lots of announcements about who we're working with and where you can find our products. So that you can find, I'll have links to that on my personal page. We're rebuilding our Instagram with Freshwater Farms. So it's Freshwater Farms with 3 underscores. We're probably going to get deleted soon. But thanks a lot, you guys. I really appreciate you having me on.
You had a great time.
Josh, man, good to see you. Thanks, guys.
Thanks again. Take care. That was really, really awesome. Always good to have him on, and it was really wonderful meeting him up in Vancouver, and I appreciate him taking the time to come on. Josh, why don't you tell us a little bit about the next Regenerative Organic Cannabis Conference coming up?
Yeah, man. I feel like I just talk about it every week, because the weeks are getting closer and closer and faster and faster. It's so much stuff going on for me, but we kind of actually, I haven't even talked to you about this yet, Steve. We've stumbled on a slightly different turn. We start on Friday with Dr. Elaine Ingham, and then she talks about the soil food web, and then Leighton Kingdom Aquaponics talks about the soil food web as well, and then Chip Osborne talks about soil testing and soil chemistry and soil structure a bit. And then you talk aquaponics and design. And on Friday night at Redway, we're going to have Frenchie Cannoli will be there to talk about the resin, which I'm super excited about. And yeah, he's very stoked.
I was just smoking with him and his hookah on Sunday.
Dude, yeah, that hookah, I hit that once, and that was a dream. And I smoked it all the way through. It was a good, anyways, yeah. So, and then Saturday, this is where we're going to kind of change it up a little bit from what we've been doing. We're going to start with Suzanne Wainwright Evans, the bug lady. She'll talk beneficial insects. And then Chris Trump, who does Korean natural farming. We had him on here a while back. And then we'll do a lunch break, and then we're going to come back and split up and do workshops, and it's going to be mostly Korean natural farming based.
Cool.
So we'll do all we'll have I can't remember how many there are off the top of my head. I'll count them. FPJ, FAA, OHN, IMO, labs. I think 5. So we'll have 5 people. And then Leighton 6. Leighton will do aerated compost tea or liquid IMO, depending on how, what you're doing. And so we'll have those folks come up and present how to do these things, and then we'll break out into groups and actually have time to practice and see and ask questions and have everyone present. So I'm pretty excited about that addition to it. I think it's going to provide a really good opportunity for folks to have free questions, and that aren't like, raising your hand in an audience to a speaker, which can be intimidating, sometimes. But so yeah, that's really exciting. And then the evening will progress into a Dem Pure night, and we got a really fucking awesome crew. Jesse from BioVortex is going to join us for that, and he also does the Regenerative Cannabis Farm Award at the Emerald Cup. And what's the other? There's another event I'm kind of spacing on. It's in Portland. If you can help me, Steve, what's it called?
I don't know.
It starts with a C. Shoot, Cultivation Classic, I believe. They also do the Regenerative Farm Award there, and it's kind of for the Oregon farmers. So he's going to be there. Super stoked to have him there, and it's going to be led by Craig from Alpenglow. I'd love to get him on the show sometime. Honestly, he's been really critical part in planning a lot of these people for this specific event. Craig's really helped out. What were you gonna say?
He's on the schedule for the guests.
Yeah, cool. So Craig will lead the event, and we'll have Jesse, like I said, and then we're gonna have Moongazer. I'm trying to remember everyone. Heart Rock Mountain, who I met at the Emerald Cup. Really excited. Wolf Dog, Bryceland Forest Farm, Daniel, Lady Sativa, Rio. I know I'm forgetting somebody. I'm forgetting somebody, but I apologize, whoever I'm forgetting. Sunroots. They just won the Regenerative Cannabis award at the Emerald Cup, and so I'm excited to meet them. I think I barely shared a joint with them at the Emerald Cup, so we haven't really got to hang out too much.
What about Dr. Faust and Dr. Ingram?
Dr. Ingram's going to be there on the first day.
Dr. Efron, not Ingram.
Dr. Efron's not going to be there.
Okay.
But and then Saturday we're going to kind of flip the switch and go into genetics with Kevin Jodrey, and there's a whole slew of breeders, a lot of guys and folks, girls that were there last year, but in my mind, just some of the really outstanding people in the scene, to be honest. Mean Gene, Freeborn Selections. I'm really stoked. He's going to be back. I just actually got a couple packs of his seeds, and so I'm really excited to pop his gear. But he works with some pretty incredible stuff, and from the video content I've seen of him, I'm just really impressed with what he does.
Speaking of Kevin Jodrey, he's our guest next week.
Oh, so cool. I didn't realize that. Dude, me and Kevin are going to be hanging out so much. Yeah, I'm excited. Very cool. You guys should, anybody listening, make sure to pay attention. Stay tuned for that. Kevin knows more about cannabis as a whole than anybody I've ever met, straight up. It's crazy. He could talk to you about any of the topics we've talked about on this show for a long time.
He knows the sales end of cannabis and which genetics sell and why they sell and what the difference is in the terpene profiles and how that goes to sales appeal. He understands the chemistry of it and the breeding end of it and how that translates into sales. And not many people understand that vertical in a way that he does. He's totally unique. I'm super stoked to have him on the show next week, but he has got to be the most knowledgeable person when it comes to what to grow, why you should grow it, and then why it's marketable, and everything in between it, and how that translates into the other. And it's how he goes about approaching it is just really, really awesome. If you're a commercial producer, going to this conference, for that alone will make a huge difference.
No, totally. And all the breeders, he's promoting these guys, he's picking them. I can't say enough and have enough thanks to Kevin for being a part of this. It's super cool. All the speakers, but he's taking on the whole Sunday and it's whoa, dude, you're the bond. So we're gonna have Elena also from Greenfire Genetics, and she has some really interesting crosses. I think she's really stoked about it. I haven't got to smoke it yet. If she's listening, the Rainbow Punch, I think is what it is. But there's she does a bunch of dosey-dose crosses, and she inherited genetics from her father. So she's a second or third generation breeder. So she's pretty awesome. Who else is going to be there? HBK. I've talked about him on the show. Eric. He's going to be there, and he won two awards at the Emerald Cup, sort of. One of them was the Chili Verde, and the other one was a mislabeled cut of his, And let's see who else. Spyrock. I don't know him. Do you know him, Mr. Green Jeans? You kind of nod. No. Yeah, I don't know him, but
Name sounds familiar, but
sounds familiar. I think
yeah.
he's been around for a while, from what I understand, but I don't know. I haven't had time to delve into what he's up to.
There's a lot of old heads and old growers that are going to be going there as well. I know there's like a bunch of people I've talked to. I have friends flying in from Australia, and I think that's the farthest we have coming in for Humboldt, at least.
Cool.
I got friends coming in from across the country to come out to Humboldt. I know Spectrum King guys will be there.
Cool.
I know, yeah, a whole bunch of cool people will be out there. So if you're, a fan of the show and you want to come out and meet a lot of the people we've had on, we've had almost half the speakers on the show. So if there's people you want to ask questions to in person or jam out on an idea or share some experience you've had, definitely try to come out. Humboldt's a little bit different because it's kind of in the middle of nowhere and everyone's just together. Like we're all together the whole day jamming out. There's no other restaurant for people to go visit. There's no other, distractions. It's just everyone hanging out, having a good time, smoking, and Josh does a great job of bringing in people to cater the event, and it's really, really wonderful. It's a totally different vibe than the other ones, which are in cities, and everyone's kind of coming and going at different times. This one's more of like a, more intimate kind of experience, and that's why Humboldt's really kind of a special place to go.
I hear that Josh has local organic farmers that are going to be doing the dinners that
actually Rio, who will be on the Dem Pure panel, Lady Sativa, he owns a local co-op, food co-op and restaurant. So I think there's a strong chance that he's going to be involved. It's not confirmed yet. But then Bryceland, who also is going to be on the Dem Pure panel. He'll have some veggies he'll be able to contribute, from what I've heard, and some other folks. And so we'll have local kombucha people, local mushroom growers. We're able to, because when we were, I've got really connected with folks down there doing this conference, and so we're able to pool a lot more local resources there than we have been in the other spots. And there's just obviously a large population of growers and people doing this work, and so it's really cool. I didn't want to forget Rebel Grown. Rebel Grown Genetics. He blew me away, and he actually won 2 or 3 awards. He won the Breeders' Cup this year at the Emerald Cup, and he's a hard working man and has some really cool gear. And also Equilibrium, Jason. That his I talked about it almost every show that I've been on. Shit, I'm forgetting the name right now. It was the papaya flavor. I pulled out the forbidden fruit on Gorilla Glue, forbidden glue, I think was what he called it. But it was fucking delicious, and it was my one selection from the whole season. Everything that I grew last year was his forbidden glue in one of those. So yeah, and everyone I must say that to that's grown his gear is like, oh yeah. So he's a very humble and quiet and intelligent and dedicated dude. And so if you get the opportunity to get any of his stuff, you should.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I want a quick plug. So why don't you tell everybody what the website is again and how to find that?
RegenerativeOrganicCannabis.com. And yeah, we have tickets online, and yeah, we're going to be also, I just talked a bunch about that, but we're also going to be right after that, the very next weekend is Portland, Maine. And, it's the same thing. We're flipping it right again. I don't have all the names for the breeders on the breeders panel, but all the speakers will be there.
It'd be cool to have some East Coast breeders too, because we don't really.
Yeah, we're bringing in local breeders for each section. So that's the intention. They were trying to connect people and make connections. So, and then we have a week off, and then we're in Ann Arbor, Michigan, which I'm also excited. And we're gonna do
2 weeks
live. 2 weeks is it? Yeah. We're going to do a live broadcast on that one. So if you are not able to make it to any of these events. We've luckily been able to set it up so it's the last one, and so, you know, if you will, like, the band performs best when it comes home. And this, we're not coming home on this one, but it's kind of like, you know, we've done 4 of these this season, you know, the speakers and stuff, and Leighton and I, and so you know, we think that it'll be a really good show, and that's a really cool facility. And so, yeah, anyways, if you or you know anybody that's interested in doing the online, please spread the word, because it's gonna be really awesome, I think. Yeah,
be sure
I'll shut up.
No, be sure to send me the link for the online thing so I can get that in the description.
Yeah, it's all through the website. So if you just go to the website and click Ann Arbor, then you can click other tickets, and there's a ticket available for the live event.
Awesome. So
Yeah.
that's great for people that can't travel. I know we've had a ton of people asking, hey, is there an online version of this thing? And we have, I think it's all but one of the speakers that we'll have on there, correct?
No, everyone's going to be there, to be honest.
Awesome.
There was a moment where Elaine thought she wasn't going to be able to make it, but she will be there. Josh and Kelly will be there. Josh and Kelly from Dragonfly Earth Medicine, they're going to miss Redway and Portland, but they will be there for Ann Arbor. So it's kind of the whole team on deck. So,
awesome.
You know, it'll be really fun. And we also have a friend that we met in Humboldt last year, Lutzy. He goes by to try to spawn Poop and Stink online, and
took me a minute to realize that was him.
To try to spawn Poop and Stink. And he is a brilliant, soft-hearted soul, and he's going to host the Dampier Night at his farm, which is really exciting, in his barn, where he's making compost extract, or compost inoculant, I think is what he'd call it. But so he's organizing that, and he's going to cook for us, and it's going to be really exciting. So big thanks to him and to the crew at Grow Greens MI, who will be hosting us there. If you want to get a discount to any of this shit, any of the Ann Arbor stuff, growgreensmi.com. They're a very large hydroponic retailer, and they have if you order from them, they'll give you a 10% coupon code. So big thanks to them.
Sweet.
Cool.
And so thanks a lot for that, Josh. It's gonna. I always love doing that event. It was a blast doing Vancouver, and I'm really looking forward to Humboldt.
I got a question for Josh real quick. Last thing on the conference, because I was looking at all the different conferences and stuff and flight plans and such for people, and then some of the friends of mine that are in the South that want to go perhaps to Ann Arbor. And we could, do you have to, I'm assuming from what I could find out, you have to fly into Detroit and then drive to Ann Arbor? Okay.
Yeah, I don't know what the distance is. I don't think it's that far. I think it's under 40 minutes, to be honest.
It's about a third of the way across the state. But it doesn't take that long to drive across Michigan at that point, you know, if you're doing east to west. It's dead west of Detroit, about a third of the way across.
Just be careful of where you stop to get gas. That's it. I'll quick plug too. Marty and I are teaching a class here on I believe it's March 8th and 9th. I'm sorry, February 9th and 10th. There we go. February 9th and 10th. Marty and I are teaching the online aquaponic cannabis class. If you're interested in that, please check it out over at potentponics.com. If you're interested, it's a 2-day class. We start at 9 a.m. Or 9:30ish on Saturday, and we start at 9:30 again on Sunday, Pacific time. And we do a whole really in-depth, very long slide deck where we go through all the different things you could want. And then we also have hands-on portion with a grow. Marty or I, one of the two of us, depending on where we're at the time, we'll do a hands-on portion and a live grow and give you all, real good close-up shots. I know Marty also breaks out his microscope, and we look at beneficial insects under a microscope. We look at a whole bunch of different things under the microscope live pulled right out of the system. We release beneficial insects. We do a whole bunch of different kind of stuff like that. and really, maximize the experience so that you have all the nutrients that you're interested in, the pest management solutions for aquaponics, how to plant them, how to grow, what are some of the issues that you run into. I know that both Green Jeans and Roger have both taken I know Roger took most of the class and Green Jeans took the whole class. They can speak on it themselves, but we really try to cover everything. Now, it's not going to teach you how to do a commercial grow all by yourself, but it definitely give you, if you're at a home grow, it'll give you all the answers, and it's a great reference for everything that you're looking for.
It gives you a lot of ideas going forward, pretty much. There's a lot of things that are way beyond the home grower scope that are shared with you, but then it'll give you ideas to think about. If you got some ingenuity, you can look back on your reference materials and manufacture something to scale that'll work for you. So
real in depth on climate control, especially.
That's what I'm thinking of too.
and pictures of builds that I've done in the past with other groups.
Yeah.
I'm actually going to be working again with helping out those original greenhouses that we managed to reconnect with. Both of him and I left the company we were working for a while ago. Haven't really talked, and started working with him again. So it'll be interesting to see how those have evolved since I worked on them last. So that'll be really cool. We'll have some footage here in the near future. So that'll be really fun. I've just been working and hustling and running around like a maniac. Indo Expo was wonderful. Big shout out to the DGC, Scotty, super fucking awesome for all the things they did, and the dude over at Dude Grows for hosting a big party truck outside, smoking with a whole bunch of Dude Grows crew from their podcast. Those guys are great. Really love all those dudes. Been a big fan of them a long time. I was back on one of their first guests back on episode 41 of the Dude Grows show. So if you go all the way back to their early days, I've been on there a couple of times. So, but they put out a lot of good knowledge, and I know Scotty's been, really having some issues this year, and it's great to see the community come out and be supportive, and really show him all the love that he deserves, and super happy to see everybody come out and just really make an awesome Indo Expo out in Denver. I'll actually be speaking tomorrow down at the Denver Aquarium Society. You can go to Denver Aquarium Society's website for information on the location. I don't actually have it handy, but I'll be speaking there tomorrow evening on aquaponics. I believe it starts at 7 or 7:30. Don't quote me on that. If it's at 8 o'clock, don't shoot me. But definitely come out and check that out if you're in Denver. I'm in town for a couple days after the expo and everything like that, working on some stuff out here. Trying to think what else is going on. That's really about it. I've been Arkansas, Missouri, and Oklahoma are all kind of exploding right now. Working with some projects in Canada, and just kind of all over, just kind of working on design, a lot of design work right now. Just building and designing grows and setting them up. So that's what I've been up to. What have you been up to, Mr. Green Jeans? It's been a minute since you've been on the show.
Oh yeah, sorry, I missed a couple of weeks. I was with my 2 weeks ago. I had to go to a meeting at my son's school, so I had a good excuse for that. And then this last week, I went to New York for a friend's memorial, which was kind of sad. But other than that, New York was fun. I visited other friends, played a lot of music. That was really cool. But it was freezing. Froze my ass off in New York. Oops, are we allowed to say that here?
Yeah.
And the garden, my garden was great. I left it for 6 days, right? I was gone from Thursday till Tuesday, and my wife only had to go down one time to water the plants, I guess, or she stayed overnight, so maybe she watered the night before and went back the next day or something like that. So it was pretty amazing. Be able to leave the garden for 2 or 3 days at a time and send somebody else in. Go ahead, just water. She had never done it either before. I was kind of nervous about that, but apparently it wasn't too bad. There isn't all that much to do. But my plants are in really small containers, so they definitely drink a lot of water.
Yeah.
They can dry out quick.
Yep.
But I recently got a much nicer light, a smaller light. I wish I could afford an LED, but I got a little 600 with a nice you know, solid state ballast, which I didn't even have anything like that. I had an old fashioned 1000, the old style magnetic ballast before this. And I'm sure that was really expensive and lousy. And somebody gave me a nicer, smaller one. So I stuck that. I'm using that for the flowering now, which seems like a downscaling, but it really fits the space that I have probably better than what I had before. So it's better. But one of these days I'll get an LED. Yeah, but I was thinking, you know, I've been recycling soil for years like this, you know, but um, uh, you know, a little bit different. I would love to be able to grow in beds. That really sounds amazing. But I still gotta grow in small containers, you know, and move the plants around like that. But it is cool how you you learn a lot of things from recycling your soil. You know, you find out what the plants eat for one thing, obviously, and what they don't like.
I don't mean to interrupt you. I was just going to ask you, did you get a chance to go back and listen to, was it last week that we had Kaya on, or the episode we had Kaya?
I haven't caught up yet. No. I'm sorry.
It was just as you were just saying that, I just thought it was interesting because, and he was telling me this in person when we were driving, but one of his first projects in breeding, he stopped growing hydroponically and he built these soil beds, and in his mind, it was like this was the way to have constant, you know.
Yeah, man, that's what Soma does. That's what quite a few other breeders that I know of actually do grow in beds. It's cool. But I think I don't know. I just think I just need to really cram more plants into smaller space and everything. And if I can move them around in the containers, they don't stay in there very long. But I suppose it's harder to keep the living material in there. I put my backyard compost. You know, I'm composting all the time, and you know, and I put not directly the compost, but I put the soil that's really full of a lot of good stuff. You know, probably have to pick out the worms and stuff as much as possible. And I don't use all that much of it. It's probably about a third in the mix, maybe, or a quarter in the mix is backyard soil. But I also put regular sand, like sharp sand, and crushed charcoal, which is basically like biochar, and you know, crushed oyster shells and all kinds of shit like that.
So you mentioned Soma, and he's got like 7 or 8 layers. I was waiting for you to hit on that because Soma, when he does his bed, he's got a layer of this, of sand, biochar, and you know, like all the different.
There's some decent. Well, there's a lot of documentation now saying lasagna is not necessarily the best. If you turn and mix everything in to an actual batch, that's actually going to give you a much better.
Oh, cool. So update on that. So I wondered about that, what y'all thought about it. So that's pretty much it in a nutshell. We all want to be turning it a little bit, but it's funny too. And I'll give it back to you, Mr. Green Jeans. I've been doing it without knowing what I was doing. I've been just because of laziness, cheapness. I've been using the same soil for years too. When I'm wasn't doing the hydroponics, you know, I always had side grows or, you know, and I always experiment because of teaching people. So I'd always, you know, did the soils. I built super soils. I finally fell on Pro Mix, but I never change it out. I let the root ball dry out. I remove it and I just rough it around the top a little bit, big enough to put because I've gone down into my veg pot sizes, you know, because I was doing cloning. So I went to kind of like you do, much smaller pots, you know, and you're right. You better be on top of them suckers. You go in there and they'll be all wilted all up because it sucked all that moisture out of there. But it makes it so much easier just to transplant right into the pot. And I mean, I've been using them over and over and over and over and over, you know.
What are you excited about, Mr. Green Jeans? What's going on in there?
Oh, man, I'm just, you know, seedlings here. Oh, you know, Swami, or actually Gas from Swami, sent me a bunch of seeds, you know, and I started 3 or 4 of a bunch of different things, including my own cherry bomb, which is amazing because I haven't had it, you know, in pure form for about 5 years now. I have a couple plants that are crossed, you know, and have cherry bomb genetics in it, but you know, so somebody gave it back to me. So I recommend out there to all you breeders, spread the love. Spread the love.
Was that in cedar clone form that it came back to you?
What's that? It's seed form.
Seed form. Yeah.
Yeah. He gave me a bunch of seeds.
Cool.
And yeah, it's amazing. He gave me 2 sets, like he said. He said some indica dominant ones, because there were probably in the generation that by the time he got a hold of them, there were a couple of here and there you could find, maybe 1 out of every 5 or 1 out of every 6 or 7 females would kind of have an indica look, and he probably liked that, so he selected for it. So he gave me indica dominant cherry bombs and open OP cherry bomb, which is open pollinated. I was like, yo.
So are you gonna BX those back onto some other stuff? Do you have
yeah, I'll probably, yeah, I mean, I'll probably just use them to cross and stuff. I think I'll leave Swami to distribute the pure cherry bomb. I think it's kind of his right now. I mean, I would be the same. For example, I have a male and female Grand Slam, right? But that's Dungeon Vault you know, that's Dungeon Vault stuff. And if I cross the male and the female and I, you know, I'm just selling their genetics. I don't think wouldn't do that. I mean, I might cross them for my own self, but I wouldn't sell the seeds because that's their business. but I think if I,
but
I think it's okay for me to.
The cherry bomb is Swami's at this point.
Yeah, I think I consider cherry bomb as Swami's. He's been selling it, you know, he's been marketing it for at least 5 or 7 years now, and you know what I mean. So I'm not gonna come back in and compete with him, but I might you know, mix it in, and if I mix it in, then it's a jam, you know. It's like it's like we're musicians. It's like I'm using a sample of, you know, at least that's the way I feel about it. And I think most other breeders probably feel the same way.
I'm glad you brought that up. We have Beth from the Open Cannabis Project coming on at the end of February. I guess there's some kind of hearing or judgment, big thing in the middle of February or 20 something. And she's going to be coming on a couple days right after that. So she'll be able to talk really, really well on like the current law on genetics and patenting and who owns what legally speaking and all that fancy stuff. It's going to be really good. She actually spoke up in Vancouver. I don't know if she's going to be speaking in the future, but she was really, really, really awesome. Josh, you're muted.
She'll be at Redway. Yeah.
Fuck yeah. So if you're interested in that kind of stuff, patenting stuff and any kind of technical questions, she knows a hell of a lot more than anyone else I've ever met. And not only that, she's you know, she knows what the hell she's talking about. She's extremely smart.
As will Ben.
Yeah.
Ben. Ben's going to be there, and Ben's going to speak about that. Ben's a lawyer, and he knows, a lot about this stuff. And so the two of them are working together to make a talk.
But yeah, so hold on a second.
So I figured out 2 names for your cross, Mr. Green Jeans: Cherry Slam, or what was it? The Grand Bomb.
Oh, I wasn't thinking of crossing it with that, but that's a good idea.
Cherry Slam.
Grand Cherry Bomb.
The Grand Bomb.
That's a good idea. I didn't even think of it.
Well, I was thinking of candy like ice cream cone Cherry Slam, or like like one of the, I don't know. It just seemed like a frozen drink to me, you know.
Well, either way, I have a male and female of Grand Slam, and I can tell the male is awesome, and I like the female a lot. Those guys at Dungeon Vault are really cool. I like that.
Hopefully,
I like it.
Yeah, he's up here in Washington.
At some point, I've been trying to get him on. He's having some health problems, but he'll be able to come on the show here at some point in the spring.
Yeah, impressed, and also with your blue hash.
Yeah, man, the blue hash. Like, not every bean you pop on it's good, but it gives you some really good shit.
It's variable, but
I'm gonna actually bring some of those blue hash beans out to Redway for the seed swap because I want to try and get some other genetics. I want to bring some of my stuff out to trade. It's something I've grown on a couple generations in aquaponics. I've also grown it out in soil. and it grows really, really, really well. It's a thicker stalked plant. Does really well in high winds. It does really well. It does a little bit better in lower humidity. I wouldn't grow it right on the coast. Not that it has mold problems, but I haven't grown it in that conditions. I can tell you that. Man, she really good yielder and supports itself really well. You know, not a lot of strains can get massive and not need a lot of support. And this is one of the few strains that I've found that really doesn't need a lot of babying compared to outdoor growing compared to a lot of other strains.
And some of that variability could be a good thing, a blessing when you're looking at trying to acclimate the strain to some kind of outdoor terroir or whatever you want to call it, you know, whatever your shit is.
Seem to change it every 3 months, so I wish we could just stop with the whole changing stuff and come up with one nomenclature. I love one of the things I really like, and I'm a big sorry.
I like terroir. It's pretty cool.
Well, terroir is good. I think the
appellation and terroir are the same thing.
Terroir. Yeah. What is it? What did you say, Josh?
Appellation, like, you know, with wine.
Oh, appellation. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's an appellation is, you know, defined as an area where everything can be produced consistently within that you know area because of the climate, the terroir.
Yeah, the terroir.
Yeah,
Can't even say that.
Yeah.
French says terroir.
But yeah, it's a bitchin' word. I love it. But you know, that's what I was saying is the variability could be good for, you know, when you grow it out if you want to make a big crop. So should I try to crank a lot of seeds for you? F2.
I would love more seeds out of that because I only have probably 120 left maybe, and I would love a lot more, and I want to give
it would be nice to have more than that because I'm trying to learn how to make a lot of seeds.
You've gotten some really wonderful phenoms out of that too. So
out of which?
You got 2 good killer phenoms out of that, didn't you?
Oh, excellent. Yeah, the 2 females are excellent. The only, you know, and the male I think is pretty good too. He smells excellent, looks good. So I'm pretty sure he's good. And
that was a blue hash, or blue dream hash plant back cross that just came out killer.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, let's make a big pile of F2s then. And it should have exactly the kind of variability. Well, there's probably, who knows, because there was already a pretty good deal of variability already. But that can be really good, is what I'm saying, you know, especially.
All those seeds were F1, so.
Yeah.
Are you going to be able to make it up to the conference?
Man, I wish. When is it? It's in
middle of February. Middle to end of
February. Damn, man.
24th. You got to come up.
Yeah, there's going to be a big seed swap on the
you got to come up
Sunday, and like you can come and bring and sell your gear, or like people will be there to buy gear, and like you'll definitely be able to pay your way, you know.
That's a really good idea.
We'll talk about that offline, but definitely bring some gear up. Green jeans. I'll bring some of my. You've already gotten some of my stuff. Actually, Josh has some of the hybrids of some of my stuff, which is really cool.
Can I send you some gear to bring if I don't make it?
Yeah, we'll figure something out.
Yeah.
Well,
we gotta have the real deal, though.
Yeah, we'll figure it out. But yeah, I'll be looking forward to that. I know Roger's trying to make it to Redway if possible. If not, I think he's going to try and make it to Ann Arbor, one or the other. Are you still there, Roger?
Yep.
I think you're trying to make it to one of the conferences, right?
Yeah, I'm trying to. Well, my birthday's the 17th of February, and I really wanted to make it out there to California. It's just going to all depend on the budgeting and all. And then I've got a friend from I Love Growing Marijuana that lives a few hours away from me, and we're thinking about getting together and going to Ann Arbor. You know, I really wanted to go to Maine because we have a panelist that we haven't seen in a long time that needs some company up in Maine, but it's just so far up there. And actually, I love the thing about the Ann Arbor with it being the live show, and you know, just everybody's going to be there, the whole complete crew. Nobody's going to be missing. Not that it's going to matter if a couple of people are missing, because there's so much you're going to see and get to experience and to be able to talk face to face with these people. That's going to be so great. But yeah, I'm trying to make it to. I really want to come to California, and we've almost got things worked out. I'm sure. I don't know if Josh has news for me after the show or not.
I can help out with travel and all. We talked about that.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. We kind of got a lot. Some of the logistics already figured out a little bit. So, we were waiting on some more information and stuff like that. And it's just it's all a matter of timing and how my budget looks for most part, as far as, because I wasn't expecting to I wanted to the whole time go to California, but I wasn't sure that I could. So now it's kind of a last minute thing almost, I
also want to reemphasize too, I've gone to a lot of cannabis conferences, both as a speaker and just as a guest or as a vendor. And by far the one that Josh and Leighton put on is the most comprehensive. You learn about more different kinds of topics from people that know that topic upside down, backwards, and sideways. And you will not, if you're a cultivator, you simply will not learn more in one weekend. I don't care what you do. You don't care what book you read. You will learn more in that experience in that weekend than anything else. And I don't get paid a dime to go, for this conference. Full disclosure, like I do this just to help out and to share knowledge. And I'm not doing it to self-promote. I'm doing this because if you want to get educated on cultivation, there really is no better conference to go to get access to that caliber of that many people in one swoop. So I really appreciate all the effort that Josh and Leighton and everyone else on the team that puts forth. There's a whole bunch of people, in the back end to help make sure everyone gets to where they need to be and everything else. And I really appreciate all of you. So thanks a lot for putting that on, helping spreading the good word.
Yeah, thanks, man. I'm not goofy. I'm not trying to be goofy with this. I'm just being goofy with it. But really do appreciate you saying that. Yeah, it's very kind of you to say, but I don't, I'm not trying to do that thing where you push it off, but it really is because of the other people. Like I've just been fortunate enough, and that's I've said this a number of times. It's like I learned from all these people, and then so when it came time to do it, it's like these are the people that I learned from. So let's it just happened.
This came to me when I was driving over the border. You have the Wayne's World philosophy. If you build it, they will come.
Yeah.
Totally.
Actually, that's a field of dreams. Yeah.
Right?
Field of dreams.
Yeah. Field of dreams. Yeah, but you know what? I want to say something too. You guys always to being modest about that, but if you weren't self-promoting it, nobody'd promote it. So, promote the shit out of yourself, because y'all deserve it. And
I promote the shit out of this.
Yeah, and these people are really, they've been all on the show, and I tell you what, I've never been one much to be interested in scientific things for the most part, unless it was something that directly involved in this case I am. And I've been soaking up this knowledge like a sponge, and to be able to sit there instead of just on the show, even to be able to hang out, because then you really could find out answers to a couple of questions, if you weren't on the show. And I just think it's great that they like the show and they like everybody and Josh and Steve enough to be coming together. I like the idea that you're getting people you learned from. It's kind of the way I promote.
Cannabis.
Yeah,
it's cannabis.
I love
cannabis.
Bring up that topic. So, and it's something that I brought up actually over the weekend at Indo. I had this conversation with a couple of people when they asked me, "Hey, what's the community look like?" Because everyone there's a lot of people right now in the cannabis community that are kind of beaten down. There's a lot of people that have been really abused by the system, abused by their local laws, abused by their local things. And what it's really caused is everyone's kind of come together. Everyone's kind of so jarred and freaked out and beaten down, not necessarily beaten down, but just frustrated with how things have gotten. And everyone that last year saw each other as a competitor, this year is embracing each other with open arms in a way that I have not seen and certainly was not expecting from this industry, considering how cutthroat it's always been. Traditionally, everyone's had guns held to everyone else's heads, figuratively speaking, and going up to Vancouver this year and seeing how everyone has kind of been like, if we don't band together, we're fucked. And we need to really share what we're doing, share our ideas, and band together as organic growers, be it soil, aquaponic, organic hydro. You know, no one's, I'll give you an example. Not a single person at Vancouver came at me with any level of negativity over being not soil. There's never a single time I've ever spoken at any conference, ever at a cannabis event, where I have not had at least one person been like, yeah, but soil's better. Like everyone there, like there's a different attitude this year because of the abuse that everyone's had on the West Coast over the last year or two, particularly the West Coast. And that's really kind of banded everyone together and brought everyone together and made everyone much more wanting to help each other and bring all of us up together. And kind of against the big corporate guys. And it's something that I really kind of blew me away in a really positive way in Vancouver. I know Josh could speak on that a little bit as well.
Well, I'd say something real quick. Was he? Well, you know what? One thing you're saying though is, well, part of it too is because you've been preaching the dual root zone for a couple of years or so, and that's still a lot of these organic growers haven't caught up with that idea yet. But they respect the fact that you're putting soil on a layer above your hydroponic setup. You know, using the fish and creating an aquaponic setup with a dual root zone. And we've had guests that are really super smart PhDs on the show go, wow, I haven't thought of that. And so, so all you got to do is make them think and want to ask a question, and you're suddenly going to be more welcome to the table. I think, and everybody brings that. Everybody at this conference brings that in one way or another, where they're doing something. There's not. Everything that, in a lot of ways, what, we know for hundreds and thousands of years, a lot of these practices have been going on. It's just they were lost practices, and now with the organic movement and the idea of being substantial and regenerative now, our new word, regenerative and self-substantial, you have to learn the old ways, because if the lights go out, the old way is the only way you're going to be able to grow anything.
Well, yeah. And I was just gonna piggyback onto that.
Piggy.
The concept of banding together. We as cannabis folks, growers, have produced the world's cannabis in small batch, historically. For since the shit's gotten really illegal, I can't say throw the exact time frame. Like, when did it go? Like, was it mid-70s?
So officially, cannabis was officially made illegal in 1934.
Yeah, and it kind of started in 1927. It took till it all was done in 34.
But they didn't get crazy till the late 70s, early 80s, right? That's like the
war on drugs was during Reagan. Was the 80s, yes. But Nixon.
Right, but anyways, my point is, like,
Nixon was
small craft farmers literally have supplied the world with cannabis for decades, and for the last 5 years, we've had this thing at legalization happen, and we built mega farm, or people have been built mega farm, and they've all failed. Not a single one of them has been able to supply the same amount and the same quality of cannabis that we have done historically for decades.
That includes Aurora and Canopy. They lost over 6 million square feet.
Every one of them. It's the same thing with big aquaponics. Sweetwater, we start naming them all. They've all fucking failed. And that is, in my mind, we should all be going, oh shit, big farming never ever works. It's never worked, ever. We can't think of one instance that it's actually worked. And so therefore we should all just, like, whether it's aquaponics, whether it's vegetables, cannabis, whatever, we got to scale it all back. And then the small farming, the small farm that used to exist, a century ago, sorry, I'm a little stony. You're laughing at me, dude. It would. I honestly believe it would save the economy of the world if we had more small farms.
Well, that's my
more
argument about hemp.
Absolutely.
I argued about hemp because I said it would save all the small farms and get everybody back to farming up and down through Indiana and everywhere. Because that's what I rode horseback through Indiana. It was heartbreaking just to watch all these beautiful farms, and they were just grown over. You know,
people would grow better food. We would have the pesticide need. We would have all the fertilizer need, and we'd still supply the same amount of food, and we'd give more jobs to more people. Like I see it rising all boats. You know.
That's one of the things when I see there's like that video, there's a popular like viral video of like a robot that's planting all the things and watering it. And I'm thinking that's going to put 70% of the world out of a job. I've lived in Jamaica. I've lived in Third World. I've visited Peru for 3.5 months. Like I've seen what that kind of, you know, sustenance level of things looks like. And if those people are replaced by a robot that can do that same thing, where the hell is their income going to come from? You know, how the hell is this guy supposed to support himself? How's he supposed to pay for his kids to go to school? How's he supposed to cover his medicine? How is he supposed to pay for, you know, whatever he needs to you know, fix his house or just to live his life? You know, like that's the biggest threat I see to some of this automated agriculture is that, yeah, it's wonderful that these people don't have to like slave away their lives just to produce food, but where's their income going to come from? Especially for people in countries that aren't a first world country that can't give them a universal whatever income. Like these people are just fucked. And what are you supposed to do to give them a job, especially when everything's being automated? And that's really, I think that's probably the bigger looming crisis coming is what happens when we do perfect the robotic technology in the next 20 years, and what happens when all those guys don't have to do anything anymore. All those lower income people in other countries are just, no one's going to give them any money just to exist. They're screwed. And that's where things like cannabis and other medicinal herbs and stuff that takes more care and actually takes some hand tending really comes into a factor. No one's really done no one, to my knowledge, has done a fully automated cannabis grow. You know, you have to do a big leaf. You have to trim those buds. You got to do all those things, you know, at the end of the day. So.
Sorry, I got distracted.
What country was that? You're talking about that robot that looked like a big, giant, tall spider? Is that the one you're talking about? Steve, you're the one that brought it up. You're muted.
Yeah, sorry. I muted myself. I smoked too much hash over the weekend. I got a little bit of a cough.
Do you know what country that was in? I just looked at the video and I didn't really pay attention.
I don't remember. But speaking of other countries, how about the bullshit that Canada wants to put in place? You guys want to talk about that for a minute?
Well, I hadn't heard. I was going to ask earlier what y'all were talking about.
Oh, okay. So here's the proposed rules. If you do not agree with them, please, and they're all bullshit, please go to canada.ca/cannabis. That's canada.ca/cannabis. They have a full feedback section. Please tell them how wrong they are. So cannabis edibles, or edible cannabis solid, 10 milligrams per package. No vitamins or minerals added. Limits on caffeine, no alcoholic products, child resistance, plain packaging, blah, 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 blah. Can't appeal to kids, no health or dietary claims, no elements that would associate the product with an alcoholic beverage. Edible cannabis beverages, 10 milligrams per container. Again, totally insane. No additional added vitamins, no caffeine, no alcohol. Cannabis extract ingested. So this would be, you know, your solid, I don't know, tinctures maybe? I'm not really sure what they're counting as this. 10 milligrams per unit, such as a capsule or dispensed amount, 1,000 milligrams of THC per package. So 10 pills at 10 milligrams, and or was it 100 pills? Whatever
100 pills at 10 milligrams.
100 pills at 10 milligrams. Thank you. Sorry, I'm a little bit high.
Sorry.
No vitamins or minerals added. No sugars or colorings or sweeteners. No nicotine or caffeine. Maximum package size, 90 milliliters of liquid extract. Child resistance. Must have dispensing device not in unit form. Whatever the fuck that means.
I think that means it has to have a dripper instead of being like a eye wash.
Yeah. So
a dropper, I mean. Dropper.
Yeah. So cannabis extracts, 1,000 milligrams or 1 gram per package. No sugars or colorings, no caffeine or nicotine. 90 milliliters of liquid extract per container. Cannabis extract concentrated THC, 1,000 milligrams or 1 gram per package. Cannabis topicals, 1 gram of activated THC per package, or 1,000 milligrams. Again, completely absurd. If you're a cancer patient, this is psychotic. There's no way you should be paying this much in taxes if you're a cancer patient or a pain patient. This is stupid. 10 milligrams per package for edibles, when that's the way that most of these people are getting their pain relief, that's criminal. You might as well just not even have cannabis. And this is why we talk
way worse than anything the black market ever did.
Oh yeah, this is why people turn to the black market. In Colorado, when I twisted my spine, I was buying 2,000 milligram Reese's cups that were 2 grams of activated cannabis. Yeah, I was high as a kite the first week, but not once after twisting my sacrum in my spine and pulling out all my rib heads did I need an opioid.
That is insanely painful. I can tell you, I've pulled out 1 or 2 rib heads. Like, yeah, we lost you, Steve.
Wow, I think Steve froze up.
Yeah,
and weaning myself on.
Well, he's alive again.
Yeah. Go ahead, Josh.
Oh no, we just lost you, but we were just kind of trying to fill in. All I was commenting on was, wow, that's insanely painful, because I've pulled out a few ribs, and it happens to me here and there, like on the regs, but not all of them. Like one of them is enough to like drive you literally crazy.
Yeah.
Like I can't imagine that's an insane amount of pain.
Yeah, all of them from my shoulder blade down to my left side, and twisted my sacrum quite a few degrees inside my pelvis. And I couldn't walk functionally for over almost 2 months. It sucked. But yeah, so I was taking 4,000 to 6,000 milligrams a day, and yeah, I was barely awake, but I didn't need painkillers. I didn't need anything that was going to fuck with my liver. I didn't need anything that was going to fuck with my kidneys. I wasn't irritable. I didn't have bowel issues like you have with opioids. So and not only that, as soon as the pain was gone, I could just stop taking it, and I didn't have to wean myself off. There was no withdrawal. You know what I mean? Like that was just it. That was over. Like it was cool. So that's the reason why you have to have strong edibles. You have to have strong tinctures for people that have cancer, people that have severe pain, people that have seizures, people that are have other heavy medical issues, or people with, like, I have Crohn's disease and IBS. People that have that, I avoid gluten for that reason. But if I get cross-contaminated, cannabis is the only thing that stops the intestinal swelling. And how that 10 milligrams per package, what, I'm supposed to buy 10 fucking packages at the dispensary at fucking $20 a pop? Go fuck yourself.
What is that going to do? Like, honestly, like I was having a problem the other day with the same thing, 1 rib out. And so what we do here, right? Sorry, I'm just adding to the argument. Like, we're limited to 10 milligram servings of 10 milligram servings, so 100 milligrams per package. And the way we've got around that is they make distillate pens. They sell them for smoke, so you're supposed to dab them, right? But they sell them in a syringe, right? So you get 1,000 milligrams that way, for $10-12. But they didn't. This place that I went up the road, from where I live, and they don't have that. And for whatever reason, I was like, "What the fuck, guys?" Like, they even sell RSO as smokable. You know what I mean? Even though they know no one smokes it, they just label it that way so that people can buy it for cheap. Otherwise you got to buy exactly what you're saying.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I get it. So for $15, you can buy 1,000 milligrams. Versus buying 20, 35, $40 and buying 100 milligrams.
Yep. Yeah, no, it's ridiculous. And it's the people with cancer, the people with seizures, the people in severe pain. They're the ones that are suffering from this more than anyone else. They're paying triple, quadruple, or even 10 times the amount of taxes that they were paying before legalization. of recreational, and it's bullshit because that's the reason why we passed these bills in the first place. That's why the fuck Dennis Perone passed Prop 215 is because people were dying of HIV and cannabis helped them. We should not be screwing these people the most out of the whole group, and that's what's so criminal about a lot of these legalization bills that are just total bullshit.
It's starting to appear like it's just one big cruel trick to say, yeah, it's legal now. We're going to really fuck you now.
Oh yeah, no, and that's the whole thing.
They're doing, even in this country, they're doing that.
It's just a new form of prohibition where they take even more money than they did before.
Well, they make it, you can't afford it. So now we're back to the black market again. Well, we got a lot of friends that are going to be real happy about that, actually.
Speaking of which, look at California. California is thinking about loosening regulations, tax burden, because they're not making any tax money. They're at 40% of their expected tax revenue for last year, for the last year. And if they don't actually bring their tax regimen into something sane and abolish local control, so these local assholes that have sticks up, local people that have sticks up their assholes don't get a chance to tell people, that I can't have cannabis, but they can have a fucking opioid dispenser right next to the goddamn grocery store and the daycare they take their kids to every day, serving opioids that kill how many thousands of people in the United States every year. Why do I not have a say in your opioid dispensary? Why can't I tell you where you can have a drugstore? Why is it okay that they can have all manner of lethal drugs in the back of the fucking grocery store, and I can't even get cannabis? I'm sorry, that's fucking wrong. Like, I don't care what your moral grounds are. You can't. There's no LD50 known for cannabis. Not anything that's sane or possible. So, and LD50 is lethal dose for 50% of those that take it. It's how they determine what the lethal dose for a drug is. There is none for cannabis. It displaces oxygen in your blood before you actually die of toxicity. It's safer than water. Okay, so in terms of ingestion, you could literally drink more gallons of cannabis resin than you could water before you'll die. Just to give you an idea of how safe it is. So, yeah, you'll have a stomach ache, but the water will kill you first. So there's actually a woman that died on a radio show doing trying to win her kid a Wii for Christmas a couple of years ago in Boston, I think it was. I had to drink so much water for a Wii. It's called Wii for a Wii. And anyways, so it just goes to show even something as simple as water. We're not even talking about Tylenol or another drug, but just water is more deadly than maybe not resin, but definitely oil. Someone's saying resin wouldn't work. Oil, okay. I'll correct myself on that one. But in terms of like actual ingestion, like it's not possible. Not in any kind of way that you wouldn't already black out before you got there. So why is it that we're regulating this like it's some kind of insane thing? And then not only that, the FDA wants to treat it like a drug. Well, that's fine and dandy, but CW Pharma was denied the patent on the drug. So how are you going to treat it like a drug when the patent was denied? So that's where a lot of this stuff is really in a weird legal gray area, because they're trying to use traditional standards, but it's been shot down. And then now, how are you going to go tell me it's an FDA approved drug when they don't have a patent on it? That's bullshit.
Actually, I wouldn't even call it traditional standards, because actually, if they were using traditional standards, it would be an agricultural commodity.
Exactly, and that's what they treat hemp like in the new agriculture farm bill. We talked about that. That's a backstab to Canada. Yeah. Which is a whole other discussion we went into it really in-depth 2 weeks ago. But I don't want to go on that rant a second time. But basically, the United States really fucked over Canada hard in that regard. So we'll see how the changes in regulation come later in the year. That's going to come, I think, after this concentrates bill. But it's really crazy to see how this is all shaking out in terms of legality and everything else, especially being on applying for licenses with companies or working with companies that have applied for licenses in the United States and Canada. It's been really interesting as well. So Jamaica is starting to heat back up again. And yeah, hopefully I'll have some footage from down there in the next few months as well.
Yeah, there's supposed to have been a vacation into Jamaica a couple times, but that last company kind of got in the way, that Canadian deal, didn't it? The West Coast Canadian.
No, it was the change in the government in Jamaica that fucked up things last time. But
oh,
we still have our license, so it's a work in progress.
No, I meant you were talking about going down there on, like vacation or whatever. I'm sure you may or may not have had farming stuff in mind too, but
yeah, it's
going
never
down to party.
There's always some business involved if I'm going somewhere. I don't have time to just go on vacation anymore. I don't think any of us do. So,
or sometimes you got too much time, but you can't leave.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Does anyone have anything else they wanted to bring up topic-wise? Should we wrap things up?
No, I'm pretty good. We had a good talk tonight, and we covered some extra topics after it, and got some really good stuff from Mr. Green Jeans. I would yield to him. What do you got? Anything else you want to talk about, Mr. Green Jeans? I'm good.
No, I'm pretty finished. I didn't have much to say. Yeah, I was just amazed that somebody sent me, seeds of
your
cherry
own
bomb after all these years. Yeah.
That's really cool. You mentioned that a while back. That was going to happen.
And then, we got the ethical conversation going on. Yeah. What you should do with your genetics.
Well, so traditionally the agricultural standard is to breed it out to an F7 or an F12 or an F14, depending on what type of plant the cultivar is, and that's when you can legally patent it. Well, you could probably count the number of people that have ever bred a cannabis strain out to an F7 on one hand on the face of the earth. So, how, maybe some corporate, pharma company has something out to an F7, but certainly, aside from that, you could probably count the number of people on one hand, and you probably know their name.
That's pretty. I think so. Yeah. But yeah, I took cherry bomb to around F13 by the time I started distributing it. So that's like taking one strain, 1.7 almost twice, huh? But yeah, I counted White Wizard at about F6, F7. I figured it's pretty well an inbred strain.
The legal definition for this level of stability, you need to call something a patented cultivar, at least in terms of traditional agriculture. And that's where this gets really tricky because, for something that's been illegal up until really recently, no one was backcrossing like that. People were trying to improve upon it all the time, not backcrossing to that level. And that's really where there's kind of this lag where you really can't. It's going to probably be a few years before anyone can actually come out and claim they have a full F7, with any legitimacy, because you're going to have to grow all 7 of those generations in legal land. You can't say, oh, well, I've been growing this for 20 years. That's not going to fly, as far as going for a patent on it. They don't generally consider illegal activity as evidence for a patent. So you got to be careful with that. I know I've heard of people running into that with some of their cannabis patents. So.
Wow, it's a whole new world.
To be honest with you, I think a lot of the cannabis patents are going to get blown up anyway, because a lot of the stuff is so much public knowledge. And the moment anything becomes known, everyone's doing it in 6 months, that it's so hard to say where something originates from. I know there's a couple of people working with and trying to patent electric static separation of trichome heads, and I've heard of at least 3 separate groups of people in the last 2 years that have been working on that. And I'm trying to get one of them on the show, so to talk about it more publicly, because it's not something that's talked about, but it's definitely something that's in the secret realm. There's definitely a couple of things that I've heard of or heard rumors of a couple of times with a couple different groups, and there's just something that's under research, but people aren't ready to bring it to market, or they haven't patented to the point where they're ready to bring it to market. So it'd be interesting to see how that all comes out.
Yeah, they don't want to let you know what they know at this point. Yeah.
Well, there's a lot of things I know I'm not allowed to say.
Oh, yeah. It goes that way too, but yeah, I'm sure they're going to be timid on the show if they haven't got a patent yet. They're going to be like you. Well, I can't really talk about that yet.
Allegedly.
Allegedly. But anyways, it'll be interesting to really see how there's a lot of cool technologies, I think, in the next year or two. I know there's been a little bit of a stagnancy I would say in the last year or two with technology, and I'm kind of seeing that start to open up again. People are kind of pushing the envelope more in some different ways, and I'm really really liking it. Starting to see something new at each of the conventions again, which I cannot say that happened last year. I think I could count on more, maybe 2 things that were new ideas that I saw last year. So I've seen at least that or more this year, so it's been kind of neat. So, on that note, I think we'll wrap things up. We're about 5 minutes early, but that's okay. Thanks a lot for Joshua Steensland for coming on the show. Please check him out over at Joshua Steensland on Instagram. He also has a YouTube channel. The link is in the description. Thanks a lot for Josh putting on the conference and everything. Why don't you tell everybody how to find you?
Yeah, and I'm Joshua too, by the way. Take that shit for real.
Yeah.
Just kidding. But yeah, it's regenerativeorganiccannabis.com, and then dutchbooms.net is my business. So yeah, just giving you shit, man.
Sweet. And what's your Instagram?
Dutch Booms.
Awesome. And what about you, Mr. Green Jeans? How do people find you or get genetics? You gotta get a buy thing up on your site, man. I keep pushing people over to you.
I know. I got to work on it some more. But greenjeansgarden.com, yeah, you can email me there. And I guess I also have an Instagram, which is like at Mr. Green Jeans Garden, I believe. Like that. My wife runs that, and she puts up cool pictures on there. Oh, yeah. She takes much nicer pictures than I could take. So
took a free picture of you, me, and your munchkin on the redwoods too.
Yeah, yeah. Nice.
What about you, Roger?
I'm always hanging out at ilovegrowingmarijuana.com, and I do have an Instagram, but I haven't posted anything to it. But it's Roger Latewood at Instagram, I guess. I opened up an account a while back so I could, BrayneGro does some stuff over there, shares, things. He's more there than he is anywhere else these days, when he's just on the run. Must be easier for him to use Instagram than anything else. So yeah, I get some updates from what he's got going on out there. And so I joined it. And so, yeah, you can reach me at Instagram if you want to. I'm Roger Latewood. There you go.
Also, a big shout out to Dragonfly Earth Medicine. Been chatting with them a lot in the last week. Love all the awesome pictures you guys are sending over from over there in Asia. So thanks a lot for supporting the show.
Cool.
Right.
Okay. Can't wait to see pictures.
Yeah. And you can catch me at Potent Ponics on YouTube, potentponics.com. If you're interested in the aquaponic cannabis class that Marty and I will be teaching on February 9th and 10th, you can catch that over at potentponics.com in the classes section. We host that online, so if you don't have to travel anywhere, you can just get that at home. That's all on Pacific time as well. So if you're on the East Coast, it might run a little late for you. I do apologize, but the majority of our people are kind of West Coast. I say 70+% of our people are the western half of the United States. So I do apologize for that. So thanks a lot for watching, and we'll catch you guys again next week. Take care.
Good night.